In this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to complete the multiplicity assignment. So, first thing you need to do is you need to have taken your photos, and that could be anywhere between 3 and 6 photos, depending on which part of the assignment you are working on. The important thing to note when you're doing this is not to move the camera. So you really want to set the camera down somewhere and have it set so that it will continually take your photos, which I will demonstrate more in class. Okay, so now I have all my photos, and notice that ideally nothing is moving really but myself. What I want you guys to work on, which I didn't do a great job of this, but if you looked at my examples during class, you would have seen that I want you to tell a story with these photos. So all of your multiple selves should be doing something collectively. Okay, and that might take a little bit of planning, which is fine. But let's go ahead and show you how to put these together. So I'm going to use my move tool right here. Now you can kind of tell which one to start with just based on the way they're numbered. So notice that I have 14 here, and then 15, 16, and 17. I tend to like to start with the first photo in the group, but it's up to you. It really doesn't matter. So 14 is going to serve as my base photo, and then I'll just go over here to number 15, and I'm just going to click and drag and go ahead and bring this up. And if I hold the shift key, it will drop it right in the center. Okay, so I don't have to worry about lining them up, which makes this a whole lot easier. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a mask. And that's pretty straightforward and simple. All I'm going to do is click on this button down here. It's a white rectangle with a dark circle in it, and that will create a mask for that layer. Okay. Then what I'm going to do actually before is I'm going to lower the opacity for this layer right here. So notice that I did click. I can move what I'm working on. Okay. So I want to work on the photo. So I'm going to drop the opacity down so I can see my previous photo. Okay, so there I am right there. Then I'm going to make sure I go back to the mask. This is super important. If you notice that you're painting with black on your photo, it's because you're not on the mask. You shouldn't actually see black show up anywhere over here. Okay, I'm going to grab my brush tool. I'm going to go up to the top to customize it. Personally, I like to start with kind of a middle hardness type brush. So I tend to start with either a hard round or a soft round. It's up to you. But then I usually bump it to around 75 just because I think it works well for me. I'm not going to worry too much about the size. I like to do that as I'm working. The mode is normal. The opacity and flow are both at 100%. Okay. So what you're going to do is I'm going to brush over my previous self, my previous photo. And as far as having to stay completely in the lines, it really depends on how much of the light changes. Okay, so if the light's changing a lot while you're taking photos, or there's weird shadows being cast, or even if there's a lot of overlap between your different selves, then you're going to notice that you have to stay in the lines just a little bit more than you would had the light never changed or anything else. You'll know right away what you need to do. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and paint that. And note this, I need to keep myself behind that table, so I'm going to try to stay in the lines there. And there's a couple things that are going to disappear here because there's a chair that appeared there after the fact. So I want to make sure that that all makes sense as I go. Okay, so I have that. Then what's going to happen next is I will go back to the photo and go ahead and bump the opacity up. Okay, so you can see that now we have both of the selves, both people there. Okay. Okay, I'm going to bring over the next one. So with 16, go ahead and take this photo up to your base photo again, holding shift, drop it in there. That way you don't have to worry about lining that photo up. At this point, I'm really just repeating what I've done. So I'm going to add that mask. I'm going to drop the opacity down. Okay, this is great. I just was wondering if I had to actually flip back and forth, and I didn't, so that's perfect. So I didn't have to flip. I can just stay right there on the mask. Okay, I'm going to grab that brush tool. It's all set up from the last time I used it. Now, this is where it gets a little different. You have to actually brush in your previous 2 cells this time. Okay, so whereas before you just did the one, now you get to do both. Okay, and I don't know about you, but I tend to start working faster and faster as I do this, just because it kind of gets easier, but you never know. Okay, so I got my last one mostly in there, making sure I get those edges, because it looked like I was ready to get rid of my elbows. Okay, and then the next one of me tends to get a little bit smaller here, smaller than I thought, because it looks like the third version of me, there's a lot of overlap. So this is where I was talking about before, where you have to kind of pay attention to what you're doing, because what's going to happen, and it's okay if I go, like, I don't stay in line over these two because they've already been figured out in the previous step. But if I go over the new version of me, notice that it takes me away completely. Okay, and that's not what you want. So I just undid that. But if you notice that at all you would have to do is switch colors. So instead of painting with black, you'd paint with white. Okay, and there might be some times as I'm going to find out really quick as I'm doing this if it's not working completely. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn that opacity back up and see if that makes sense. Looks like it does. I think something was weird happening with this chair, so I needed to fix that. And there were some shadows that seemed to disappear too. I can use a really tiny brush because my hair looks a little cut out here, so it's going to be kind of tricky. Anyways, okay, so last one I'm going to bring over. So let's see, where is that? Again, using my move tool, up, over. I'm not holding shift until I get to this point, so I'm just now pressing the shift key and dropping it so that it lines up. So I'm not holding it beforehand, okay, just so you know. Adding that mask right there, again, dropping that opacity, coming back in with my brush for a lot of painting. So just starting at one end and working my way through it. And again, because I did the work in the beginning, I don't have to worry about staying in lines a whole lot here because it's kind of already been done. Now right here, there's a mess up. So I'm going to have to figure that out later as soon as I'm done with this step to see where I messed that up. And I'll show you how to do that in just a second. So again, I don't really have to worry about the lines too much here because again, I already did that. So you can see how much quicker this starts to get just because, I mean, yes, you have to do it so many times, but okay, here's an area where you would have to be careful. Notice that I just cut off part of that chair. So I'm going to switch colors for a second just so I can bring that back. And then I have to kind of figure out how I'm going to want this to look. And we don't want any ghosts, right? So make sure you definitely figure out the way to color, get all the parts back. Okay, so let's see what happens when I bring this all the way up. Okay, so notice right here there's a mess up, and then right there there was a mess up, and my knee kind of disappeared here too. So let's see where that happened. So here's how I do it. I turn off all the layers, okay? And then, because I know this one's just fine. And then I'll add this one and see where I messed up. So you can kind of see I lost some shadows, I lost some other detail. So on that, I'll just click right back on that mask, and I'll come in here, and because those are the things that make this look believable. So you want to make sure you don't lose too much. So I got to keep all that shadowing that I let go. And then there. And I think that's it. Okay. So that's done. Let's see. Just kind of go through it. So my elbow gets a little weird too. Lost part of my shoulder. It really shouldn't look like there's a whole lot changing. And that's what I want you all to really pay attention to when you do this, because it's how it's going to look believable. Okay, next one. Okay, let's just start with the left side. So again, I lost all my shadows again. Same thing as before. Easy to fix. Okay, let's see. Some weird stuff happened down there. Not sure what it was, but something with my foot down here changed. There we go. Little things make a huge difference. And I know this is going to feel a bit tedious, but these are the steps that are going to make a huge difference. Okay, so I think that was the last one. And then we'll turn this one on and notice the things that I messed there. I completely removed a chunk out of my body. For whatever reason, I really did not want this shadow to stay. Not quite sure why I did that, but over and over again I did that. Okay, let's see. Last one. Very tiny little things. Okay, so I think that about does it. So now you see what you need to go through to make this look pretty believable. So it's not just about taking pictures, it's about spending the time and adding these layer masks, dropping that opacity, and then using your brush tool to come in and really figure out that layer mask. That way you can seamlessly blend in multiple photos. Now you saw what happened with mine, and that I had the chairs were moving. And that created a little bit of problem with the shadowing and whatnot. So sometimes it's a little easier to make sure that there's nothing but yourself or the person you're taking photos of that's able to move. You keep the camera absolutely as still as possible, and you just don't let anything else move, and that will make your job a whole lot simpler. Okay, that's it. Let me know if you have any questions.